Good evening and welcome to Writers Unplugged. This is a series that will air throughout the year in support of Cleveland Reads. Writers Unplugged is a chance to hear your favorite writers or new to you writers in conversation as if you were eavesdropping on them in a coffee shop. Cleveland Reads is an initiative to improve literacy levels in our community, and Mayor Bibb has challenged us Clevelanders collectively to read 1 million books or spend 10 million minutes reading. My name is Jen Jumba. I'm a librarian here at the main branch of Cleveland Public Library. One of my favorite things besides reading is talking to writers. It's an opportunity to get to know their craft, what inspires their stories, where they like to write, essentially getting to know them better and seeing them as human beings and not just the name on the spine of a book. And we are so lucky this evening to have Hank Phillippi Ryan with us. Before we get started, a couple housekeeping things. To find out who else is visiting Writers Unplugged, both virtually and in person, go to clevelandreads.com/unplugged. And Max Beck's Books on Coventry is our wonderful independent bookstore, and they have copies of Hank's books just waiting for you. So, brief introduction to Hank. Hank Phillippi Ryan is the USA Today best-selling author of 14 novels of suspense. She has won multiple prestigious awards for her crime fiction, including 5 Agathas, 5 Anthonys, and the coveted Mary Higgins Clark Award. Hank is an on-air investigator for Boston's WHGH-TV, and she has won 37 Emmys, 14 Edward R. Morrow Awards, and dozens of other honors for her groundbreaking journalism. National book reviewers have called Hank a master at crafting suspenseful mysteries and a superb and gifted storyteller. Hank's novels have been named Best Thrillers of the Year by Library Journal, The New York Post, BookBub, Pop Sugar, Real Simple Magazine, and others. Her current book, The House Guest, is a story of psychological manipulation that explores the dark heart of marriage and friendship. It's Gaslight meets Thelma and Louise, and Library Journal starred reviews call it binge-worthy. And next up, watch for One Wrong Word, coming in February of 2024. So I've been fortunate and have had the privilege to get to know Hank over the last several years. And if I could, I would give her an award for inspiring people to be their best selves, for always being kind and supportive, and for having a positive impact on this world, and for being somebody who I consider a genuine friend of mine. Please join me in a warm welcome to Hank Phillippi Ryan.
That's so nice, Jen. Thank you. You're making me blush. I've known you from moment one of my book life, and that is quite amazing.
It's amazing to me to think how many books you have written over the years that we've known each other, and each one just gets better and better and better. So
that's so kind of you. It's amazing to me too, I have to say.
I don't know how you do it.
Well, I don't either, and I'm not. And every day that I start to write, I think, how do I do this again? I'm not sure how I did it before. Let's just keep trying here. So I'm so enchanted by your intro and by what Mayor Bibb is suggesting that you all do. Has anybody figured out how many hours 11 million minutes is?
No, that's math, and I'm a librarian, so I would say no. It's several hours. Yeah, the whole point when we first started with Cleveland Reads was to improve literacy levels, and we realized for some people reading a book might be intimidating. But we know that people spend time reading the paper every day. They might be reading a magazine. They might be reading an online application. So we wanted to kind of help them build their confidence, right? So that they start logging those minutes and then hopefully discover the joy of reading, a book and just being transported to another world.
It's interesting because, and I don't want to skip ahead, but yet I'm going to do it. That's exactly how I look at writing a novel. I teach a lot of writing classes, as you can imagine, and I love to do that. And writing a novel is incredibly daunting. If you think, I have to write 100,000 words. No one can do that. Your brain just can't handle that. If I could I write 250 words? Could I write 250 words? Could I write 500 words? That seems handleable. And by cutting the big project into smaller pieces, I allow myself to succeed every day. I'm setting myself up to succeed and writing 1,000 words rather than failure by not writing a whole book. And that fuel, that muscle that you use, that sort of letting yourself off the hook that you have a very small task. And you can do that. And then incrementally, you just get more and more adrenaline, and you get more and more focused, and you get more and more comfortable with it until it becomes something that you cannot wait to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can we talk a little bit about the house guest? Speaking of making things into manageable tasks, this is your latest book. Can you give us an overview, a little bit of the story?
Sure. I mean, it's a thriller. It's a psychological thriller. Harlan Coben once told me to write the kind of books you love to read. Because if you love to read that kind of book, then you'll love writing it. And that passion and that joy, that passion and that joy comes through to the reader. And we've all read books where we think, wow, I know that the author loved this. You could just feel that. So I don't like graphic sex in books. I don't like graphic violence in books. I don't like inappropriate language in books. So I just don't put that in. That's not in any of my books. What I do like, as you well know, is deception and manipulation and gaslighting and mind games and double crossing and cat and mouse games and a little bit of murder. All my books are psychological suspense. I want you to miss your stop on the subway because you can't put it down. So The House Guest is my 14th novel. And there was a thing on Twitter which said, can you describe your book in 5 words?
Ooh.
So The House Guest in 5 words is greed, divorce, betrayal, female empowerment. I'm going to make that one word. Female empowerment and revenge. Greed, divorce, betrayal, female empowerment, and revenge. And then, of course, on Facebook, where you have more characters, can you describe your book in 5 phrases? So I thought, okay, 5 phrases for The House Guest. Hold this up again.
Absolutely. I got you.
The book. It's on the door behind me, but of course, StreamYard isn't letting me show you the door. So I'm going to rely on you to hold up the book.
That's fine. I'm happy to hold it.
You're a beautiful Vanna White looking thing.
Yes, there we go.
In 5 phrases, The House Guest is a gorgeous house on Cape Cod, a shocking and disturbing divorce, a surprisingly sympathetic FBI agent, a brand new best friend, and an emerald necklace. So it's 2 smart women facing off in a high-stakes psychological cat and mouse game to prove their truth about a devastating financial betrayal. But which woman is the cat and which woman is the mouse? So, as you said earlier, it's Gaslight meets Thelma and Louise.
I'll tell you,
a little bit of Strangers on a Train.
Absolutely. I hear the word gaslight and I hear the word Paula and the way he said it in that movie, and I still cringe to this day that how people can mess with other people's minds and make them think something is there or not there. It's amazing. And then the Thelma and Louise part, I mean, who doesn't like that female empowerment and, kind of standing up for yourself and, kind of taking things back to where they belong.
Exactly. 2 things about that. One, and remind me about Thelma and Louise. 2 things about that. One is in the gaslight element of it. I was talking earlier about not being a fan of graphic violence. And I think that the mind games that people play, the emotional destructiveness that people do to each other, impose on each other, it can be just as devastating as a gun or a knife, and just as life ruining, and just as destructive, as I was saying. It's a difficult thing to, in The House Guest, for instance, it stars Alyssa McCallan, who is a lovely woman who has been married for the past 8 years to a powerful, wealthy, benevolent guy. I mean, he's
absolutely. Sounds like a great guy.
And one day he just walks out on her after 8 years of marriage, inexplicably walks out on her. And she can't figure out why. And how many of us, and nobody in the audience needs to raise their hand, how many of us have been heartbroken? How many of us have had the rug pulled out from under us? How many of us have had a day when we thought, nothing in this world, nothing is in my life is how I thought it was. It's all just not true. And that's when we meet Alyssa. Bill has taken her friends. They've all gone with Bill. He's threatened to take her house. He's threatened to take their money and leave her with nothing. And she doesn't understand it. And then when the FBI shows up at her door one day, she realizes she really needs to make a friend, and she gets one. And that is the sort of seductive, beguiling Bree Lawrence, who was running from a problem man of her own, a dangerous, potentially man of her own. And they begin to think that maybe they can help each other. Maybe they can solve each other's problems. So the minute you see the house guest appear in the book, then you'll know that something is about to happen. So it's interesting because this book was almost called Her New Best Friend.
Really?
And we decided to change it to the house guest. I mean, how sinister is a house guest? They're in your house. They can look at the medicine cabinet. They know everything.
Yeah, there's no like delineation of privacy.
Exactly. And that's why I thought a house guest was such a wonderful domino for a story, especially if someone is at a loss and feeling extremely vulnerable. And in walks this new person.
Going back to your point where you talk about destruction, there is a line that you talk about that truth, you refer to as truth as a comfort and reliable comfort, and deception as being the worst emotional evil there is.
Yeah.
And destruction of truth, more than the act itself, is proof that the victim is weak, someone who can be deceived, can't see reality. I mean, it's this whole, you're trying to get a sense of what's real, what's not real. I love
that. Thank you for bringing that up. That's so nice. I love a careful reader, and I know you are, Jen. It's just, but I do think that I was in California on book tour last week, and there was an earthquake. I missed the earthquake, kind of, thank goodness, I guess. But my mother used to talk about being in earthquakes when she would go on vacation. And she said that the one thing that we can rely on in the universe is that the ground isn't going to move, and that's why the earthquake was so devastating, is that everything that you think is definite just isn't. And when you have an emotional earthquake, when there's an emotional upheaval, when you not only discover that what you thought was true, what you believed was true. I mean, truth is a thing. What you believed was true isn't true. Then your whole emotional equilibrium is gone. Your decision making is gone. Your confidence in yourself is gone. And every decision you make after that, you second guess and third guess and fourth guess because you got this big thing wrong. So what else is
how can you be right about this thing that you have going on?
And they talk about, I want my characters to be likable and relatable. I mean, relatable is such a big word for me. And I want my readers to think, what would I do in this situation? I know how Alyssa feels because she is at her most vulnerable point in her entire life on page 1 of this book. Robin Agnew, who was a wonderful book reviewer and who owned Aunt Agatha's bookstore in Ann Arbor for years, was saying, and I love this, that she said that the DNA of a Hank book, and I really opened my eyes wide.
I know, I was like, wait, I'm going to write this down.
The DNA of a Hank book is that in the end, a woman, gets her power back and the reader is left with optimism and hope. And I love that because no matter what travails the main character goes through, my books are essentially, they're murder mysteries, they're thrillers, they're cat and mouse games, but they're essentially about female empowerment and getting your power back, and who we really are and what our place in life is. I mean, I'm not gonna beat you over the head with the theme, you all. They're fast-paced, page-turning mysteries.
Without a doubt. Binge-worthy. Yes.
Thank you. But underneath, I've had women come up to me at events and say, thank you. You made me see that I could succeed. You made me see that I could persevere. You made me see that my life could be okay, that I could take charge of myself. And oh my golly, that's just the best thing I could ever hear.
Yeah. Joined in conversation with multiple award-winning Hank Phillippi Ryan. I think it's part of who you are, though. I think as an individual that believes in empowering people, females in particular, to want to pursue their dream. When you talk about your background and getting into journalism, which is probably one of my favorite stories, and how important that is to be that example, to kind of pave the way for other people. And it's empowering because they've done it themselves, not that somebody was like, oh, here's $1 million and now your life is wonderful. You're not going to lose the house, you're not going to lose your vacation home, you're not going to lose the great car, and friends. But yeah, I think we've all been in those types of situations where what we thought we knew is not true, and very unsettling.
Yes. And I think that sometimes people start to believe that their world is out of control. We're all feeling that a lot right now, I fear. But, I think that when I was younger, much younger, and the story that you're referring to, I'll tell it very quickly if you want me to.
I love it. It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite stories.
I had a series of failed jobs by the time I was 20. I had gone into politics, worked in several political campaigns back home in Indiana. And sadly, not one candidate I ever worked for actually won. And that's a problem. So when my gubernatorial candidate lost, he was out of a job and I was out of a job. And I thought, well, my goal in life is to change the world. I had known that. To make a difference. I had known that since I was a kid. And so I thought, well, the way I'm going to change the world is I'll be a reporter. So I was 20. You have to remember this. I was 20 years old. And it was 1970. And I went to the biggest radio station in Indianapolis, my hometown, and said, I'm here to apply for a job as a reporter. And long story short, the news director said, have you ever been a reporter before? Have you ever been a newspaper reporter, a radio reporter, a television reporter, magazine reporter, anything like that? Nothing.
Yearbook,
nothing.
Something.
Zero experience. And finally, he said, well, did you go to journalism school? And I said, no. And he said, well, were you on the yearbook in high school? And no. So he finally says, you seem like a very nice young woman, and I know I could teach you how to be a reporter, but I really don't have time to. So he said, besides, I just got to tell you, you are supremely unqualified for this job. Can you give me one good reason why I should hire you? And I said, well, yes, I can. I said, your license is up for renewal at the Federal Communications Commission right now, and you don't have any women working here. And then I just smiled, and the next day I had my first job in broadcasting. So, and the thing that, and I think the thing that you're getting at, Jen, is that I was really brave. I mean, that was a really silly thing for me to do. But at age 20, we think we can get anything we want. And we have this weird, naive confidence that no one is going to say no to us. And we just go for it. I just went for it. Obviously, I had done my homework.
Exactly.
Right. About the license, and I knew about the FCC. So he knew he wasn't hiring someone who didn't know anything or didn't know how to do research. But I think about that now. I took a chance that day, a big chance. I put myself out there and I found my calling. I've been a reporter essentially ever since.
Yes.
And I think about that now because I don't want to lose that bravery. I don't want to lose that confidence in myself. And I think we all do, as we grow up and we get more experienced, and the experience teaches us it's not going to work. Somebody's going to say, no, I better not try this. I don't think so. Why do we feel that way? As at this age, we should feel whatever. If someone says no, somebody else will say yes later. So I might as well try it,
Absolutely.
And that's such my philosophy now. This sort of, well, let's just see what happens. How bad can it be? So.
Exactly. No, I think it's that quote that, what happens if I fall? And it's, oh dear, what happens if you fly? Which always makes me stop and think. And so I think you've been doing that. And I think, as women, I think sometimes we go through that period where we don't quite have that same courage. And then you hit a certain age, certain milestone this summer that all of a sudden you're like, yeah, okay, it's back,
I,
that sense of courage.
I've never heard that quote about failing or flying, and that is really touching. It kind of brings tears to my eyes. I mean, I tell my writing classes when they're feeling down or sort of overwhelmed, and I say, what if I promised you could do this? What would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? I'm telling you, you can do this. You would do, if you knew that you'd succeed at the end, you would plow through any obstacle. You'd be like, bring it on, because
that's exactly right. Because it's temporary, right? I just got to get through this to get that.
It's temporary. Oh my golly, that's perfect. Yes. And I just think I think fear, and sometimes writers talk about writer's block. And I think writer's block, there's no such thing. It's just fear. And you get fearful and you get worried and your writing brain seizes up and you look at the screen and you can't do it. And I just think
that doesn't happen to you. Like 14 novels, 5 Anthony's, 5, Agatha's. Tell me that doesn't happen to you.
Well,
or yes, that's part of your process.
There's 3 answers to that. I'll tell you. One is, no, actually, it doesn't happen to me like writer's block.
Okay.
I've been a television reporter for 43 years.
Yes. And you can vamp with the best of them.
Well, when I was doing general assignment reporting from 1975 to 1983 until I became an investigative reporter, I did a story every day, and it had to be on the 6 o'clock news. And I couldn't say, can I be on at 10 after 6? I'm not really doing this.
Yeah.
The deadline is the deadline, and that's when it is. So some days my stories were fantastic, Emmy-winning stories, and some days they were like, fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I knew I was going to have the days that were going to be fine, and the next day would be better. So as a writer, as a novelist, when I have, say, a year till my deadline, I know that I'm going to have some writing days that are terrible, where I'm thinking, I have no idea what's going on here. I don't know what happened before or what happened next. I have no idea. And then I'll type something and I'll think, seriously, I say, that's the worst sentence that anybody has ever heard.
That's what it is. I bet your grocery list is perfect. Come on.
No. And then I think, okay, then just write another bad sentence and another bad sentence and another bad sentence, because you can fix it later. I can always fix it. Knock on wood. I'm still knocking on wood. I can always fix it later. Right. And so that I don't let myself seize up with fear, because what is that going to do? That's just going to make it take longer. So I'm not going to succumb to that.
What an allegory for life, though, right? Like, I'm not going to worry and stress, right?
If it made,
I can always fix it late. Well, most things,
and it won't even be there later. You won't need to fix it later, because something else will happen. I mean, I'm a huge worrier, and I realized I was worrying about my book, I was worrying about my career, I was worrying about television, I was worrying about everything. Yeah. I finally said to myself, what good is this doing? Okay, you're just taking up your mental time worrying. Yeah. So either do the thing or just have some fun, because if worrying would make a difference. Now, worrying isn't planning. Worrying isn't organizing. Worrying isn't making a schedule. Well, I mean, like, I'm super organized. Worrying isn't organizing. Organizing is to take away the need to worry.
Exactly right. Yes. Hence spreadsheets, my friend. Yeah. Right? Organized. Yeah. Makes sense for me.
Let me just show you. This is my word a day chart. Is this not really high tech?
Oh, that's awesome though. But it's going to be like in a library somewhere. Like, this is Hank's, word count for the day. That's amazing.
And when I do my word count, I give myself a little this is backwards, so I can't do it. I give myself a little smiley face. See?
Aww.
Like, thank you for letting me do those words. I'm so happy with that. So talk about low tech. That's what that is.
You found what works for you. And I think not every writer has the same approach to things, right? This is Mike's favorite question as to whether or not you're a pantser, meaning you fly by the seat of your pants when you sit down at your computer to write, or if you're somebody who plots and is like an architect and structures and knows exactly where the story's going.
I'm the biggest pantser in the world. I have no idea. I start out with one cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I type the words chapter 1.
Mm-hmm.
I just think, okay, let's see what happens here. I mean, I heard George R.R. Martin talk about this once, and then I'll talk more about this. But
yeah,
George R.R. Martin, some people call them pantsers and plotters, like you did,
yes.
pantsers and plotters. And I know Mike calls them architects. George R.R. Martin calls writers architects and gardeners.
Oh.
Architect would build the scaffold of the story.
Okay.
Then in writing it, this is essentially an outline, and then in writing it would fill in the blanks of the scaffolding and put up the drywall and put up the studs, whatever people do, and then the siding.
Yeah.
And then finally, you put in you decorate. A gardener, like a gardener writer, plants as the seed of a story and plants it in the manuscript, and then waters and cultivates and cultures it, and
it's much better.
Sees what grows and sees what grows. Now, you've talked to 10 million authors. You know this, and that people have their way, and I think it's so important to tell people who want to write that there is no right way to do it. You do it the way that works for you, and if it doesn't work, just try another way, because there's no secret way. There's no way that if only you knew, you could be, Lisa Jewell. It's, and I know she's a pantser too. I know she's a gardener too.
She really?
Yeah.
No way. I interviewed her a couple years ago, and I was blown away.
Yeah, she's my total idol, one of them. But the other thing about being a pantser for me, 2 things. One is I've been a reporter for a long time, as I said. Mm-hmm. And when I'm writing a television story, I don't know what the story will be. I'm reporting it and researching it and going out in search of the story. And so if I knew the end of my television stories, it wouldn't be new, right? It would be, it
would be like, oh, turn in for today's olds. Like,
turn in for the olds. Exactly. I get to feel that from you. So, so I'm comfortable as anyone can be, comfortable not knowing the end, because that means it's new. So every time people say to me, wow, the twists and turns, the reveals in your story, I couldn't believe it. I was so surprised. I think, wasn't that a surprise? Talk about a surprise ending even.
Yes.
I surprise myself every day. I surprise myself every day in my books. And Sue Grafton used to call that the magic, that a writer's brain just comes up with things. Things that, and that's why I don't understand outlining. I know all of you out there. I know some of you are outlining.
Hannah's freaking right now.
There are days that I would just do anything for an outline. I will confess to you that I just, please tell me what happens next. The joy of when I get a good idea that I didn't have 4 seconds ago, just nothing like that. When I think to myself, oh, that's what happened. I can't believe that. And then typing away. Great.
So I'm joined by multiple award-winning author, Hank Phillippi Ryan, and this is the house guest. So being a gardener, where did the seed of the idea for this book come from?
Well, I will tell you that because I know exactly where it came from.
Wow.
And it's interesting because almost every book I can tell you the thing.
Yeah.
But in this book, way before I thought of writing this book, this is just an experience that I had some years ago. I had a pal in a sort of another lifetime.
Okay.
And she was a wise, smart, successful, professional, worldly, savvy, cool woman with a professional, reliable, responsible, big deal job. She was smart. She knew her stuff. And she was married to a responsible, reliable, successful, big business person who knew his stuff, savvy, worldly, all this stuff. And they each had their jobs, and they were each devoted to their jobs. And every morning they were married, as I said, and every morning they would have breakfast together. And my friend would say, all right, I'm headed to the office. I'll see you at dinner. And he'd say, yep, I'm headed to the office too. See you at dinner. And this went on for years. I mean, I think they were married for 8 years. This went on until the police showed up at their door.
Uh-oh.
And it turned out that the husband had never gone to work a day in his life, that there was no office, that there was no job, that this was completely made up. It was completely fabricated.
Holy cow.
He never left home during the day. I mean, he would go out to do errands and stuff, but basically he was home on the computer dealing in pornography. And then my books aren't about pornography.
No, they're not. But still.
The point of it was, my friend, and now, because you've read the book, now you'll know.
Yes.
My friend never knew.
Yeah.
She had no idea what was going on. And I know she didn't know. And it started me thinking, it was in the pandemic. So I started thinking about this. So all this happened before the pandemic, but then in the pandemic, I was thinking about her. And I was thinking that my husband is a criminal defense attorney, and I'm a reporter and a journal and an author, and he commandeered our breakfast room for his law office 2 rooms away, and I'm here in my study where I write. And I began to realize that when we were home every day together, 2 rooms apart, I really didn't know what he was doing. I mean, I know what a lawyer does, and we talk about his cases.
Yeah.
Exactly what he was doing, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And I thought, what if he were doing something really nefarious? He isn't. But
no,
what if
I thought, good of a guy.
Yeah. What if he were doing something really nefarious? And could he keep a secret from me? Could he keep that from me? And I thought, no, I would totally know. I would completely know. And then I thought, could I keep a secret from him? He thinks I'm in here writing psychological.
If only. Yeah.
I'm not. What if I'm really doing something else? Could I keep a secret from him? And I thought, sure, I could. I totally could. Absolutely. And that was really chilling. And I started thinking, how well do we really know the people whose head is on the pillow next to ours? The people
absolutely
that most in the world, could they be doing something that we were not aware of? So, and you can see the seed of that. You can
absolutely, because that's the premise of
not anything about the
pornography. Yeah, right.
The trust. It's about trust. And so that was what began. And then I started doing research. Oh, let me tell you this. Then I started doing research. And there's an organization called something like the White Collar Group, something like that, the White Collar Crime Group or something. And forgive me, I'm going to get this wrong, but it's and a wonderful woman runs it, whose husband was convicted of a white collar crime. And so she has sort of corralled or organized other women who have been in situations where their husbands were white collar criminals. And some massive 85%, again, I'm making this up, but it's in the realm of that, had no idea what their husbands were doing until law enforcement showed up. Just didn't know. Yeah. And it also, my final thing about this, it also translates to violent crime. You think about Ted Bundy or BK or the serial killer.
Charles Manson,
Their families didn't have any idea what was going on. I mean, you think about what we hear on television all the time. Oh, he was so quiet.
He was, he kind of kept to himself, but nice guy. Yeah.
Nice guy. So that was very galvanizing to me as well, because when you lose trust in someone, and then back to the book, when you lose trust in someone who you thought you loved and thought you could trust, then you lose trust in yourself.
Yes.
Then you start doubting yourself. And that was sort of the domino. That was the domino of the house guest.
Absolutely. So, one of the things I love about your books is if I'm trying to describe it in 5 phrases, I could never do it. 5 words could never do it, because it's so nuanced, right? There's so many different layers and so many different things to talk about. We can talk about money, right? Because Alyssa's having a conversation with Bree, and she asks Alyssa, when did you first learn about money? Because Alyssa, who is this well-to-do wife, right, grew up with nothing, right? And so Bree asks her, when did you learn about money? And it's interesting how we think about money as a child. She just couldn't understand the concept that things cost and it's like basically paper and how do you not have it kind of situation, right? And the division that exists between the haves and the have-nots. So much to think about, right?
Yes, and I'm again so touched and honored that you picked up on that. I remember when I was a little girl and I couldn't have something. I mean, I wasn't impoverished like Alyssa.
No, certainly not. Yeah.
Everybody has a budget. And I remember saying to my mom, "Can't you just write a check?" I mean,
right.
you just wrote a check and then you would get things. And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Honey, a check is money." And I didn't understand why you couldn't just do that. The other thing about it is that when you read the novel, and I hope you all will, when you read the novel, you'll see that money is the template for the whole book. It starts out, I mean, the first page is talking about Alyssa thinking about division.
Correct.
And
there's that math again.
She's talking about divorce and division,
subtraction,
allocation, subtraction, division of the assets, division of her life, and how Bill is now about to be subtracted from her life. And then the problems, and there are math words throughout. It's talking about addition, multiplication, and division, and subtraction.
So clever.
Fractions and all those kinds of things. And you might notice it and you might not, but it's in a book about finances and a book about money. The references to money and math are throughout. Mm-hmm. And then page 1 of the book, Alyssa is talking about division. Her life is ended and divided. But the last page of the book, what is she talking about? Addition. About addition and how her life has added things to it now and will continue to have things added to it. So that kind of thematic, I hope subtle theme, an indication of theme is throughout the book as well. And those are the kinds of things that you both work on in editing. And that also, and this is the magic as well, sometimes they're just already there. I mean, as I wrote, when I was doing my revisions, I would say, "Oh, where did that come from? That's pretty good." I can't believe it.
It's that gardening, right? Like you're lining up, like here's the row of additions instead of basil and your fabulous tomatoes, which you're well known for.
I'm still getting tomatoes. I'm still getting those cherry tomatoes. Yeah, it's astonishing. I love it. I love it every day. I love them every day. We have 4 or 5 cherry tomato plants and they're just flourishing. I think we had thousands of tomatoes.
That's terrific. Hopefully you made some sauce for like the winter months.
No, I ate them.
Okay. Even better. Even better. So speaking of like, this theme, this universal thing, and whether it's a divorce or a breakup, right? There's always this concept of we, Bree is, with, this FBI guy, and it's like, oh, we'll bring pizza over to your house, Alyssa, and we'll have dinner. And all of a sudden it hits Alyssa hard. Like, wait a second, like, what's my we? Like, I don't have Bill anymore, right? That was her we. And so I think it all kind of throws us for a loop. I mean, it continues that, foundation of which we knew, shaking.
Yeah, that is a reference. That is a reference to Carson McCullers' Member of the Wedding, where one of the characters says, "What is the we of me?" And I think I read that when I was 15, and it stuck with me so completely because I think you're so right. We think about that all the time, and that's the division, isn't it? Again. Yeah. That she has no we, and she came up, Alyssa, who is smart. She left law school.
Absolutely.
Because she really wanted to be Mrs. Bill McKellen. This is another thing that I think is so interesting about this. It isn't like poor little Alyssa has to subjugate herself to her husband and not be herself. No. She loved it. She enjoyed that. She enjoyed that time of her life. She did it out of choice. She could have stayed in law school, but she just wanted to have this new life. So she wasn't coerced into it. I wanted people to make sure they knew
absolutely
she had made this choice. It just turned out that Bill might not have been trustworthy.
Yeah. And not trustworthy after the first year or the second year. We're talking 8 years go by.
But
right? 10 years. Yeah.
he knows how to keep a secret. Clearly, Bill knows how to keep a secret very well. And clearly, and I don't want to go too far here, he wasn't quite sure what Alyssa would do if she knew about it. And that's the other thing, because if you turn the tables, how well do you know the person sleeping next to you? He turned out that he didn't know her very well either, which I think is interesting.
So it makes me think, what do we do so that we get to know the person whose head's on the pillow next to us better?
Oh, sister, I have no idea. I think people talk about having happy marriages, which means that you listen to each other. You really listen to each other, not just like, oh, okay, whatever, but
it's active listening.
You're hearing them. And that one of the things I realized that's one of the most life-changing things, whether it's personally or professionally, is that I could be wrong. And once you accept that you could be wrong, that somebody else might have a better idea or a good idea or a different idea or a helpful idea, it's like so freeing. So you're like, great, let's do what you say. I don't care if it's a better idea.
Or that ego kind of wants to keep that I'm not wrong in check sometimes. So
sure. But if you let
being
that
able to check it,
if you let that go, one might be happier.
Yeah. So I'm joined by multiple award-winning writer, Hank Phillippi Ryan of The House Guest. This is your latest. Here's the interesting thing. This book talks a lot about secrets, right? Like, how well do you know the person? And every character in this book has a secret. I'm not going to tell what they are, right? Because everybody has to go out and buy it and read it.
Don't you hate it when, I'm going to interrupt you and then we'll go back to, don't you hate it when reviews, they'll just tell the whole story?
Yes.
And you think, do you know how hard I worked to make that happen?
Yes.
Let other people have, I'm sorry, I'm pointing at you.
Yeah, that's okay.
Let other people have the fun of finding it out. In a review, you just please don't do that. It's not just
it should be like reviewer etiquette, right? You shouldn't be able to have spoilers in reviews.
Well, I think that sometimes people think, and forgive the rant, I think sometimes people think that the only way there can be a spoiler is giving away the end. But no, psychological suspense, in a Lisa Scottolini or Lisa Jewell or Lisa Unger.
I know all the Lisas, yes.
All the Lisas. In a Ruth Ware, you can't, it's every page is a reveal.
Exactly. And it's the thing that books do, and I know I've talked about this with some other writers as well, is that it's not just the what happens, but it's the why it happens, right? You're able to see inside that character's head. And most of us think when we're doing something, most of us have in our minds the best of intentions.
Sure.
Right?
Well,
most of the time.
Goes out to be a bad guy. People go out to do the thing that's best for them.
Right. And normally it's
for everybody else.
Yeah. And then it's normally by degrees. It's normally not a huge pendulum swing. It's typically well, I can get away with this. And then I can get away with this. And next thing you know, there's this gigantic gap. And you're like, how did that happen?
Oh, I think that's so brilliant of you. Absolutely. So I talk about it sometimes as saying, you work in an office and maybe you take home a box of paper clips.
Right.
Or you take a paper clip and then a box of paper clips and then a pencil and then a box of pencil, then a piece of paper, then a ream of paper. And suddenly, your office is a supply, station.
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't feel like you're really stealing, but you are, you were stealing when you put that paper clip. And so you find yourself exactly as you say, and happens in every book of mine, you find yourself in a place where you never thought you would be doing something you never thought you would do, but not jumping over the river. It's just swim by swim by swim.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
That's right. And you were asking me about the secrets in the book.
Yes.
And I will jump to your question, I think, by saying, I don't know what there'll be. I know everybody has to have a secret or two or three, but I don't know what.
And I guess that's the thing when you're reading, is that everybody's secret, but the characters don't know those secrets yet. And it's basically on track to collide at some point.
Yes. And it collides in my mind as well, because as an author, I don't know all the secrets. I mean, in a novel, you're a smart reader, and these people who are listening are smart readers. you read a psychological suspense because people are going to have secrets. So you don't
absolutely.
The house guest, is that the house, when you meet the house guest, you're not going to think, oh, I guess that has nothing to do with the book. And it's the title.
Right.
So when you realize who the house guest is, you know that that's the pivot of the story, but you don't know why. You don't know why. And when each new person comes into the story, you don't know why. And that's part of the reason that you read the novels, is to find out what role this person is really playing. Who are they really, and who are they saying they are? And that's the cool part about psychology.
It is a very cool part, because I'm frequently unsettled when I'm reading your books, because I think one thing and then I start to second guess, and there's self-doubt, because that's the way you've crafted it with these characters that, secrets, I think you allude to, secrets are like kind of a form of power, right? Knowledge is power is often used. And, secret is basically part of information or knowledge, and how you use it, I guess.
100%. But and what I'm trying to make sure that people know is that I don't know what the secrets are either.
So how does it end up so brilliantly on a page? Is it like you do that first draft where you're not sure, and then you can go back and edit and say, okay, wait, this is where I think this fits? Or
I
do you write the perfect first draft and then it just
I write the perfect first draft. I just ended it. There was a great story about Robert B. Parker. Robert B. Parker would talk about, and I loved him. Robert B. Parker would talk about that he would never do any, he would just write his first draft and that was it. And he would send it in, no editing, just send it in. I think it was, it was before email, before the internet, certainly a lot of it. And then after he died, he left his papers to, I think, Boston University. And I read an article that someone had looked through his papers, and his manuscripts for his books were there, and they're all edited up. They're all marked up.
So that was just his, again, a secret or deception or whatever you want to call it. But
he could do whatever he wanted to do, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think the same of you. But how is it that you get it to the point where you don't know that they know? It's like that Friends episode. They don't know that we know that they know.
So, which is perfect, which is completely perfect. Because I have faith in the process as I'm writing the book, that the story will be revealed to me. I mean, they always talk about, whoever they is, they always talk about how the first draft is the reader telling the story to themselves, or discovering what the story is. As I say, I'm in search of the story. So at some point, like 5/8 of the way in, I started to think, oh, I see what this is. I see what I'm doing here. Okay. And so for the last, whatever, 3/8, I don't know my math anymore, of the book, I know what it is. I'm like, I'm right. Okay, I got this now. I know what this is. Often the end will kind of change and twist, but I have the nugget of it then.
Okay.
So then I go back after I just finish it. I think, okay, there's some stuff I'm going to have to fix. And then I go back, I finish it, and then I go back and start at the beginning with the knowledge in mind that I've just figured out the knowledge of what the book is really about. And then I go back and make it be more that.
Wow.
So I could sometimes it even is making someone look less suspicious.
Oh.
Because I realize that I don't want to foreshadow.
You don't tip your hands. Yeah. That's fair.
It's now, so in the last edits, it's the balance of making people be who they are.
Yeah, no, I'm joined by multiple award-winning writer Hank Phillippi Ryan of The House Guest. And I guess that's the thing that is so great about your books, is that it never feels like a gimmick at the end, right? With the twists and the turns and everything else. I mean, it rings authentic. And then I love what you said earlier, that when you read a book, at the end, there's hope and there's empowerment, for that character, by their own kind of grit and determination, which is wonderful. So hang in there, even though it gets a little dark at times.
Well, that's why we read psychological suspense.
Yes.
It's going to be dark. It's going to be gaslighty. It's going to be manipulative.
I know, but you're one of the nicest people. So how does that work?
Oh, thank you.
How does that work, that you're so nice and so kind? And then I read the stuff that you write on the page and I'm like, stay friends with Hank.
Very wrong.
Right.
I've been an investigative reporter for 43 years, and I've wired myself with hidden cameras and confronted corrupt politicians and chased down criminals and gone undercover and in disguise. So I've seen a lot of things.
Yes.
But I love telling a story. I love telling a good story. And I think one of the things I learned in television is how to tell a good story. And so, I don't want you to turn the channel when my television stories are on, and I don't want you to be able to put down my books. And that's what I'm working on.
Yeah. So this is the thing you all are going to go out and buy. Hank Phillippi Ryan, Max Back's books on Coventry Independent Bookstore has her books for sale. But you're going to want to make sure your laundry's done. Make sure you have some grocery shopping done. It's okay to eat cereal in your PJs at 7 o'clock at night because you're still reading.
I urge you to do that.
Yes, exactly. And the other thing I love about your writing is that you're able to capture the ordinary things that we see throughout the day. There's one scene where I think it's Alyssa throws something in the garbage, it's a pumpkin ball. She throws it in and she's just watching the aluminum triangle swing back. And I was like, how do you do that? It's something that we see, but you read it and it's you can almost imagine that you're right there in the kitchen with her, seeing her toss it, hearing the ka-thunk, right, as it hits the bottom, and then watching the little.
You're the best, Jen Jemba. You totally are. You're just the best reader on the planet. Thank you.
Oh, well, if only, but thank you.
You know what it is an answer to your question, actually. After having been a television reporter for so long, and maybe because of it, we say in television, if there's no video, it didn't happen. It's really hard to do a television story with no pictures. And so one of the things I try to do as I'm writing is I'm really watching the movie in my mind of what's going on. So, if someone is outside and they walk indoors and they have glasses on and the glasses fog up, what really happens when you throw something in the waste basket? What if you open the freezer and the cold air pushes out? Push is the word, I think.
Yeah, it is now.
It's really the real world. And when sometimes when I'm writing and I'm envisioning it, I'll think things like, there are too many people in this room. Someone's got to go. And so if you envision what the movie would look like, then the reality comes through.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that amazes me. There's these, words on a page, right? So Hank Phillippi Ryan, multiple award-winning writer of The House Guest. You have these words on a page and you're able to create characters that we absolutely love or don't trust or not quite sure about, and settings. I can totally imagine being at her house in Cape Cod, and sitting there and here's they're out on the screened in porch type thing with the cushions and hanging out and, so I'm wondering, since you wrote this book, right? So Alyssa and Bree meet in a bar, right? In a hotel bar, Alyssa's basically getting ready to leave. And this girl, Bree, sits down next to her and is having a tough day. Do you ever wonder now who sits down next to you?
I'm on
book. Go to bars, right?
No. I'm on book tour now, and so what I do is I go to my event at night, and then I come back to the hotel, and I go to the bar to order dinner to carry out to take upstairs because room service takes a long time and it's ridiculously expensive. So I go to the bar and order food at the bar.
Okay.
And I'm always sort of gauging who's at the bar. I'm sort of looking where's a place where there isn't anybody on either side of me where I can just stand there and be by myself. And sometimes I have to choose where to stand, the least threatening or weird looking person. So, this is what I do my whole life as a reporter. And
I know, but that's how do you do this investigative reporting? People know who you are or don't know who you are. And sometimes you post hey, I'm in the airport on book tour. I'm on the train heading here to teach this class. I'm doesn't anybody ever know? That's Hank Phillippi Ryan sitting right there.
Sometimes it does happen. Sometimes it's really funny and it's a joy. It's absolutely a joy.
Close with kind of a last thought, right, about this amazing book, The House Guest, which everybody's going to go out and buy and read, buy as gifts for people. Yes. At the end, one of the best scenes, you have a butterfly. The very end of the book, right? And you talk about the butterfly's wings were black and white on the outside, but a luminous orange inside. a secret that only showed when the wings were open. And I kind of can't think of a better analogy for us as human beings, right? That there's this persona we have on the outside, and only so many people get to see that luminous orange inside to trust. Yes?
You're going to make me cry.
I'm not going to make you cry.
Yes. And of course, that's the point. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just love, I speak for myself, and I think for every other author when I say we work so hard on each book, and it's not just a good story. We work hard to create memorable, tiny little memorable detail moments. And we hope to the depths of our souls that some smart reader will notice that. So again, I am so grateful.
It's your words that I just want to take and kind of pull and put in my pocket and then pull it out later. Like even one of the last lines, like you can't love someone else until you love yourself. And that's essentially what both Bree and Alyssa discovered in the course of their friendship in this book.
And we should all discover that. That's my preaching, and that's my preaching in the book. Let me say before we go, shall we show the new book?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I have the final 5 questions for you, but absolutely. Yeah. Let's show the new book.
I'm not sure how I've ever, I guess I don't know. This is the first show I've ever shown it on.
Yes.
It's called One Wrong Word. It's the story of a crisis management expert who has to solve a crisis of her own. And she has 2 weeks to do it or she'll lose her job. And she realizes that she might be, her name is Arden Ward. She's a crisis management expert, and she helps people through tough times. That's what she does. And she gets an assignment to help the family of a man who's been acquitted in a drunk driving accident.
Okay.
Even though he's been acquitted, though, the court of public opinion has found him guilty. And he and his wife and his 2 adorable children are just being made miserable by the world. And Alyssa is hired to sort of repair his reputation, is what she want to do. And then very soon she realizes, what if she's actually protecting a murderer? That is One Wrong Word.
Yeah, I know. And it's perfect for Book Face Friday. Look at that. I love it.
It's hard to do. I'm trying to do it myself. It makes me realize. So this comes out February 6th. So I hope you will invite me back, you all.
Oh, absolutely.
Wrong Word.
Absolutely. I want you back in person next time.
Yeah, let's do that. Definitely.
Okay. All right. Final 5 questions, right? Okay. Where's your favorite place to read?
Oh, on the beach in Nevis. Nevis is an island in the British West Indies, and it's absolutely empty. White sand. The pelicans are flying over. Completely quiet and solitary. With my husband there too, reading.
Okay. Jonathan has to be there. Absolutely. What song would you sing at karaoke?
I would sing Blue Bayou.
Oh,
if I could do it.
Linda Ronstadt. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. You have won 37 Emmys. Do you have a favorite story that you won one for? Or they're all different? It's kind of like your books. You can't have a favorite.
They're totally different, but we did win an Emmy for. We found out that the Massachusetts 911 system was so broken that it was sending emergency responders, police and firefighters to the wrong address thousands of times a year. So you call the firefighters you call them and ask for the fire department or police, and they'd go somewhere else. We found out, and the state wasn't keeping track of that and was not correcting the errors thousands and thousands of times a year. I did so much research on this and got so much inside stuff on it that I was sorting documents for an entire weekend, and I had so many paper cuts that my hands were bleeding and there were blood on the documents.
Oh,
but we got the system fixed and we won an Emmy for that. My producer, Mary, and I got an Emmy.
That's terrific.
It really
Congrats. Yeah. And all the people in Massachusetts that now know help is coming when they call.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not something we take for granted. My goodness. What was the best concert you ever went to?
Well, I'll tell you besides the Beatles, I saw the Beatles in Indianapolis in 1964. So that's got to be big. But
absolutely.
We were in Paris when the 3 tenors were on the Champ de Mars, and we happened into it. And so it was Domingo and Carreras and
I can never remember the third one either.
Jose Carreras, and I'm going to know this as soon as I get off.
Not Pavarotti.
Yes, Pavarotti, of course.
Okay. Pavarotti. Okay.
Pavarotti.
Okay.
Pavarotti, Placido Domingo, and Jose Carreras. Thank you. On Outside in Paris,
City of Lights.
That was pretty great. I still have the T-shirt from that.
That's awesome. And then last question: you're a great gardener and cook. What's your favorite dish to make?
That's my favorite dish to make is turkey tetrazzini, and I make a mean turkey tetrazzini. I tried to demonstrate it on a cooking show once, and I realized that the first ingredient was a leftover turkey. So I forgot that I had to make a whole turkey before.
Right.
But it's just leftover turkey, white wine, mushrooms, garlic, cream sauce with Parmesan cheese, broiled and browned on the top. It's delicious. Email me if you want the recipe.
Absolutely, because I'm thinking Thanksgiving's coming up. We might have some leftover turkey, right?
That's why you make turkey, is to get to make turkey tetrazzini later.
That's fair. I'm with you on that. One last question, and that's because this is part of Cleveland Reads. We talked a little bit before about literacy. Can you talk a little bit about why literacy is important to you?
Oh, how would I start? I grew up in really rural Indiana, so rural that you couldn't see another house from our house. And my sister and I used to ride our ponies to the library to get books, and we'd read up in the hayloft of the barn behind our house. Jen, I was the nerdiest, geekiest, most unpopular little girl you could possibly imagine. I had no friends. There was nobody around me, and nobody liked me at school. Well, that's a story for another time.
Yeah.
And my only friends were characters in books. They were my only friends. And who would I be without those friends? I mean, we are sitting here together. We are sitting here together talking about my books and everybody's books and Cleveland Reads because of that.
Absolutely.
When I have 2 grandchildren, and I remember the first time I saw them reading, not that I was reading to them, but that they were actually reading a book, I burst into tears. There is nothing more.
That's how I feel with my nieces. And I used to read to them. That they live in Pittsburgh and I'm here in Cleveland, so FaceTime. And then, you start to see them read themselves, and it's the same thing. And I will tell you, my older niece, Abby, is a huge mystery reader.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's my girl.
You did well. You did well.
Exactly right.
My grandson, Eli, I remember when he read a sentence out loud, and then there was this moment where he realized,
wait,
I read that. I've never seen that. I've never had anybody read that to me before. And I read, there's this moment, this spark on his face that I will just never forget. And I wish that for everyone.
Special. And the fact that you were there to see it is even more special. Absolutely. So I want to thank all of you. First of all, thanks to multiple award-winning Hank Phillippi Ryan of The House Guest. Thanks to all of you who are joining us this evening. Thank you to Mike, our tech team, to making sure everything went smoothly this evening. And thanks to all of you who are watching and listening to Writers Unplugged. I'm Jen Jumbo with Cleveland Public Library, and happy reading. Thank you.
Happy reading, you all. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.